What's up? How are you doing today? So today I'm going to share with you about the fight of my life. Well, definitely so far. But I would have to backtrack a little to let you know how I almost lost my life. Before it even began, here's a story.
Sí.
She was in labor for almost a day. Water still never broke. So the doctors, of course, in seeing to the safety of her as well as me, they decided to break the water themselves. And the water was discolored. And the discoloration is a sign that there's something wrong with the baby. The baby is in distress and the baby needs to be delivered now. The doctors started rushing. They started, okay, we're going to give you emergency C-section, put you on a stretcher, sign the form, going to the theater. And at the door of the labor ward where they would have operated on her, she said, "Doctor, the baby is coming. The baby is coming." And of course, this distressed baby who is now coming, they're going to deliver. They couldn't even wait to carry her in to the theater. At the door, they started the delivery. She wasn't fully prepared in terms of her opening. And on top of that, my head was too big. So the size of my head, this head back here, this extra piece of my head back, was difficult to come out. And that added to the delay when they actually got me out and I was delivered. They had to whisk me away for hours, so she couldn't see me until hours after delivering me because they were giving me oxygen and trying to get me to a stable level. But thankfully, everything was fine and I got to meet her. I got to meet this woman who fought for me and spoke for me and was my voice even though I didn't have any at that time. I got to meet my mother and it was love at first sight. Love my mother, love my mother. When I was in prep school, you're excited to go back to school after the summer holidays, so everybody's excited, you have new bag, new shoes, new this, and you're going to see your friends again. But for me, it was bittersweet because yes, I'm excited to go back to school, but I'm going to be leaving my mother at home. And I usually cry on the first day of school when I'm going back, and I normally say, "Mom, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you, Mommy. Are you going to be okay without me?" Remember, I'm not an only child. My mother married, have a husband, have a bigger sister. It's not like me and her alone live, but I just felt this close attachment and love for my mother from that time. Up to about grade 3, I was doing this. I said, "Mommy, give me something to remember you in the days when I miss you." So what she did, she bought a little teddy bear that could fit on my desk. So when I went to school now, I just pumped my teddy bear, put it on the desk. And when I thought of her or missed her, I just had the teddy bear there to know, I can think of my mom. They just stopped there though. I don't know how many you remember when you had collect cards and those pay phones. My school had one, I don't know why. My prep school had one that we could use. And my mother bought me a card that I could call her collect. So at lunchtime when I had the opportunity, I would run downstairs, run, go to the phone booth and take up my card and punch in my card, boop, 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 boop. And they would call and say, you're placing a collect call, and they would ask her if she wants to accept charge, and I'm waiting until of course she does, and I'm saying, "Mommy, you alright?" I mean, I saw my mother in the morning, So my mother in the morning, I was going to see her in the night, but I just had to check in the day to see if she was fine. That's how much I love my mother. So now you know from the first story that my mother could have lost me while she was giving birth to me, or even before that, but she fought for me. But who would have known that almost 2 decades later, I would have had to be fighting with her in order to not lose her. When she got the news that she was diagnosed with the big C, the one that the one that nobody wants to hear about, the one that can cripple you, cancer, breast cancer. And the same way she fought and spoke for me at delivery, at birth, I had to fight for my mother, fight with my mother to see her through this, because I wanted her to live. Story going to get serious now. Let me pull over and we'll talk a reason. The big C. I remember telling myself before that I don't know or can't imagine what I would do if I got cancer. That diagnosis for myself personally. But the funny thing is, my mother was diagnosed and I immediately knew what we had to do. We had to do all we could. We had to fight. But let me backtrack a little. How did she tell me? How did I find out? My mother, at the time we were living, just my mother and my sister and I, three of us in the house. And one day, I think I was leaving out to go to school or work somewhere. And she said to us, when you come home, I have something to tell you. Of course, every man hates hearing those words. Whether you're in a relationship with your wife or your girlfriend or your manager at work, when somebody says we need to talk, it's like, oh gosh, just tell me. But of course, that added to the suspense throughout the day, as in, what would my mother need to say to me that she has to prepare us for it, and we'll have to be there together in the night, me and my sister. Anyway, I reached home and she said, did a test, and the result came back that I have cancer. And neighbors, believe me, I don't remember if I reacted. I know I didn't react strongly, as in an emotional outburst, anger, rage. I just don't remember what I did. I think it was one of those news that hit me slow. And at the time as well, there was so much else going on. My mother and father split around that time. So there was a lot of life changes going on. We had moved, the three of us had moved, and I mean, there was just a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments outside of this new health crisis. Maybe I was emotionally drained. But it was a time where there was a lot of stress for me, and I can imagine now for her, she's the primary carrier of this burden. She is the one who has the disease. For her to hear this news, must have been shattering. I, I can't even imagine what she would have been going through at that time. But here comes the big C, and it's not something you can put on the back burner. It's not something that they can say, hey, I'll deal with you a little later. It needed the attention now, and that's what we did. We gave it the attention it deserved because it wasn't going to be around for long. We were going to fight it. One thing with my mother though, if you know her personally, she's gonna pray. You know the word worry? My mother is a warrior. But to compensate for it, she is a prayer warrior. And that's how we got through it. We had to decide to respond to it, not with emotions all the time. We had to apply faith. And faith is how we fought, actually. And we decided that we're going to tackle this thing together as a family. I want to pause here to highlight something. Many people believe the person suffering with the disease are the only one fighting, but that's not the case. They have supporting family members, friends who are out there fighting with them. The friends and the family aren't on the front line facing the brunt of the attacks from the disease, but we are there fighting nonetheless in another role, somewhere filling in. We decided to face chemo together. Her doctor said she needed to do chemotherapy. We're doing that. And I remember having to leave work early in the days, coming an hour earlier at work to leave a little earlier so I could pick her up from work and then carry her to get her therapy session. I had to be doing things like getting medication for her for chemotherapy. There are days when she would just not feel strong enough and I would have to leave work early. My manager is super considerate and allowed me the flexibility to be able to be that support for my mom. And in hindsight, you never know what you know. You're going through the hospital visits before she did the surgery and all that, the clinic visits. I never had time to stop and pity this. No, cause my mother need me right now. And my encouragement, I'm going to pause again to say all those who are fighting with the persons with cancer, fight with them, encourage them. Don't stop to pity. And there are times when actually my mom is as if she was stronger. It's as if she was stronger, and in all this she was trying to protect us as her children, you know, emotionally and all that, mentally. Up to surgery now, and I mean, I get a girlfriend now that is now going to be my wife. My mother is recovering from her surgery, and telling her that we're going to get married, and my wife joins in the fight. So the first time my wife and my mother met were face to face. Was at her hospital bed while she was recovering from her surgery. And my wife at that point was so much strength to me, Tina, big up. And after the surgery, she had to do radiation, my mom. And I was there for her again. I think the radiation was more difficult than the chemotherapy, because there are certain things that come with it. There are certain restrictions that come with it that just doesn't allow you to have that freedom. You can't do something as simple as bathe for weeks. But we fought it through faith, through the strength of God. So she had rounds of chemotherapy, or before even the chemotherapy, she had rounds of just knowing the diagnosis, the round of handling this diagnosis with everything else that was going on with her. She had a round of deciding to the surgery, having to still work while she was going through this. A next round of punches when she was doing chemotherapy. A next round of punches when she did the surgery. A next round of punches when she did radiation. And I am there on the line, the sideline. Call me the coach. Call me the man who goes in and wipes the face of the fighter. But my sister and I, we never left her an inch. Cancer never won. Cancer never won. And at some point, I don't know which round I want to call this, he received a knockout blow, and through God, we'll have the victory today. October is Cancer Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness Month in particular. And I think the point of this video is one, to encourage all the fighters to continue fighting. The news isn't a death sentence. Fight. Those who are with them, friends, family, fight harder for them. And be reminded of the God who we serve, who is still in control. I've learned this the other day that just like everything else, people have different measures of wealth. Not everybody have the same amount of money. Different measures of mental ability. Not everybody is as bright as the other person. Different measures of many things. You have a different measures. Some get a little bit, some get more, some get 1, some get 5. And I've learned that there are measures of healing. So whereas one person may be fully healed, one person may be healed for a time, trust God for your measure of healing. And remember that He's still in control. He's sovereign. And I'm speaking here both to the person who is fighting the disease within their body and the person's fighting with them. Fight. You love the person, fight with them. You're not fighting alone, because my mother's left hook was just not hers. It was powered by God. I know what, we have a faith story to tell, and it's best to hear the full story, not from me, but from my mom. So God's willing, tomorrow, join us, and we'll hear the full story about how she felt and how she got through it. So see you tomorrow, neighbors. Subscribe if you're new here. Glad to have you, and see you tomorrow, God's willing, for my mom's story. Alright? Until next time, big up from me and my house. Take care, neighbors.